As I'm working on my fifth and likely final novel, I'm going through stories from my career and some of the things that I've learned. And today I want to talk about promotions. It's really interesting. I've had 7 promotions in my career. I've been very fortunate in that regard. But we don't talk a lot about the ones that we didn't get, right? I actually had 3 times that I've been turned down. Had one time that a role was created for me and given to someone else, and actually turned down a promotion once that I actually bandied to be considered for because it just wasn't right for my family and for everything in that moment. It was a tough decision. Really changed the trajectory of my career in some ways, some for the good, right? Um, Things that I've learned about promotions over the years. I'm going to share some of those key learnings, and I look at some of the themes. I remember my first promotion. My manager asked me why she should promote her top contributor. This is something that a lot of you have to think about, right? My answer was because I could help her replicate top performance and show the team a morale boosting career path for top contributors. This was in an office that needed a big morale boost. I was top contributor, but it was a team that was struggling mightily with the state of the business at the time. My first and third promotions, I was able to come in with very, very specific ideas to combat some of the biggest obstacles that our sellers were facing. Plans that I would put in place, contests, processes, things that I would do that would be very specific, things that de-risked the decision from the hiring manager perspective. My fourth promotion and beyond, it was really just listening to what our leaders were talking about as far as what our biggest challenges were. We needed more pipeline, or we needed better line of sight to line of business relationships. And I would not only figure out how to combat that, how to conquer those challenges, but I was replicating it. I was sharing these best practices everywhere I could. I was visible with other teams and training and coaching, and really just continuing to be asked to do bigger and bigger things. Taking on stretch projects. There was a lot of visibility. So throughout a lot of these things, I've just seen some themes that I wanted to point out today. Number one, you don't get a promotion because you stuck around or showed up. I've heard people say, "Hey, I guess management's the next logical step. I've been doing this 3, 5, 6 years. I should probably be a manager." No. You don't get it because you showed up. You get it because you become the overwhelmingly obvious choice for that next step. And sometimes even when you're the overwhelmingly obvious choice, you still don't get it. You still don't get the role. There's a lot of things that factor into this. Relationships, who are your sponsors, and sometimes somebody else is the better fit for what exactly they're looking for at that moment. And so what do? Well, you're the first person to shake the hand of the person that got it. You get feedback from the hiring managers to maybe some things that you could do better and differently. And you dust yourself off and you keep moving. That's how you get the next one. It always reminds me of that last line in the Color of Money, one of my favorite films. And I wrote an article about why it's the greatest sales movie of all time. But he asks, and I won't use the exact wording because it's there's some cursing in it. But they ask at the end, what are you going to do when I beat you again at this tournament, right? It's like, well, then if it's not this one, it's the next one, or it's the one after that. And you've got to adopt that mentality when it comes to promotions. That's how you get promoted. You don't get every one that's available, but you continue to learn, just like life, just like experiences, just like sales. You can continue to get better because the experiences that you have and the learnings that you have. But every promotion that I've gotten has required a few things. Number one, becoming that most overwhelmingly obvious choice, because ultimately you've got to de-risk the hiring decision as much as humanly possible. They're looking at this role that they've got to fill. They know what they want for this role. Those are the types of questions you want to ask them for. What gaps did maybe the predecessor have? Why is this role open? What do you think are going to be some of the biggest challenges in ramping and transitioning into this role? Tell me about the culture of the team. What's working, what's not. What do you think this person is going to need to be able to step in and do? Because those are the things that are going to matter the most. You've got to de-risk that hiring manager decision as much as humanly possible, and know the unique strengths that you're going to bring into the mix. Now, you've got to do all the fundamentals too. You can't miss a fundamental. You've got to have your career walking deck. You've got to have your resume that tells a story. You've got to have your 30, 60, 90-day plan. You've got to do your follow-up thank you note about how excited you are. You've got to follow up again about the role. You've got to do all the fundamentals too, but you also have to show up and shine. And that's the key element. And that's where your storytelling is key, because, of course, the hiring manager doesn't know how the people they're interviewing are going to do. But the better you can paint a story of how effective you'll be based on your experiences when you face similar circumstances, all the better. And never downplay challenges that you will face, because I think a lot of times it's our gut reaction when somebody says, well, this is a big challenge in this role. And we think, oh, well, that's nothing. I can do that. I've done it before. No, it's thank you for articulating that. I anticipated that would be a challenge, actually. But this is how I faced it in similar circumstances. I faced a challenge at this role or this project, and would attack that similarly. Or you I gave the foresight to that in my 30, 60, 90, anticipating that this is how I plan to approach it. What are your thoughts? Making that interactive, though every interview is very different from another. Find sponsorship. It's different than having a manager and having a manager sign off on you. You've also got to find sponsors in the business, people that you know. I always encourage people, find a wide net, cast a wide net, and go out and find people that are hiring for what you might want to do, doing what you might want to do. Go out and meet with them, learn from them, hear what's mattering, what's working, what's not in their role. And find out those types of things, because ultimately, kind of like selling, you want to create a groundswell of influence. You want people to say, yeah, I'd sponsor this person, because guess what? All of those things de-risk the hiring decision for the hiring manager and ultimately can get you where you want to go. But the last and probably most important one is assume the position. I've had a couple of scenarios in my career where there was a vacancy, there was an opening, and I didn't go straight for the role. Right? I actually reached out to the skip level, to the ultimate hiring manager, and basically said, look, hey, I know you're grappling with some transition here, and in the interim, I have some experience in leadership. I know the team. Let me know if I can help out, pitch in, jump in, represent, do some things that this person was doing, meet with the team, help them with any deals that are in flight. Let me know where I can help. This led to me becoming the interim leader of that team, and ultimately, when the hiring process went through, it gave me some immediate visibility. I had assumed the position, and this is what ultimately helped me land the job. Your next role may not be obvious, and for some of us, that's really freeing. It's interesting. When I was in my 20s, I always knew what the next thing was. The next thing was after that. The next job I was climbing and trying to get. But in today's day and age, it's not as clear. But for many of us, that's very freeing because we never really know where the next gig could be, where we can parlay our skills and experiences, and the next job that you may have may not even exist today. And so embrace that, work on building a brand that basically exemplifies what you want to be known for and shows your next hiring manager how you can ultimately add value for them, wherever that may be. Good luck.